what's up, guys? Welcome into the Big Friday Kickoff Podcast. I'm Emily Cochran. He's Robert Ristaneo. And Robert, we had a very special guest this week. I know we typically talk all things high school football, but this week it was all about high school baseball, and we had probably one of the coolest guests we've maybe ever had.
Yeah, we had Joey Warner with the Mobile Baseball Connection. He came by to kind of talk about the baseball season. We talked about that a little bit at the end, but Joey is a historian of Mobile baseball, high school, all the great players that have come from here. His Facebook page posts all kinds of old newspaper clippings and historical documents from baseball here in Mobile, basically, and he kind of helps tell the history of Mobile through the sport of baseball. And he is just a joy to be around. I think we both had a great time with this conversation. Told a lot of great stories. He's very smart, knows what he's talking about when it comes to baseball here on the Gulf Coast. And so, yeah, I think we had a great time with it.
Absolutely. He is an encyclopedia of knowledge when it comes to baseball. You can't help but smile when you're with him. Ladies and gentlemen, here is our episode with Joey Warner. All right, y'all, joining us now is Joey Warner from the Baseball Connection. He's basically Mobile's baseball guru. I go to him for all my questions, anything I need to know when it comes to baseball here in the Port City. Joey, thank you so much for joining us here on the podcast.
Well, Robert and Emily, thank you for having me. It's a joy and an honor to be here.
Well, the honor's all on our part, I think. We've been talking about this for a while. You know, we're big fans of the Facebook page and just the amount of history that you share with people about the city of Mobile through baseball, and I think it's just awesome what you do. So we really appreciate you coming by.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So, Joey, for our, you're well known in the baseball community here in Mobile, and I'm sure around the extending areas. But for people that don't know you, kind of take me back to the beginning. Where does your love of baseball come from? How did that start? Just take me back there.
Okay. Well, you say I'm well known, and I guess I'm well known because I put so much out there on my Facebook page, and that's probably the only reason, because there's so many baseball people in Mobile that spend their life about baseball and have done great things on the field and off the field. But thank you for that. My love for baseball, I was basically born with it, I guess. And my daddy, he wasn't a baseball player, but he came up around some great baseball players at McGill Institute. Mm-hmm. Frank Bowling, Milt Bowling, and he was a 1948 graduate. And back then, I think the 48 team at McGill had like 6 players that went on to play professional baseball. And that's going back a long way. So my daddy had a real love for the game, and I inherited that from him. And when it came around to playing the game, it wasn't like today when you can start when you're 4 years old. This was 1970, and I was 7 years old, and Daddy didn't realize that you had to be 8. And I can vividly remember riding down the municipal park, the hill, and Daddy telling me that I can't play, I'm too young. So either way, to this day, I have 2 grandsons playing at municipal, and that's where I've grown up, umpiring, and it's my roots of stomping grounds, municipal park. So that's where everything started with baseball and football. And then I just continued to play through high school, had a good career at Shaw High School, and I was a catcher, and I had some opportunities to play on the next level, and I chose to go to Faulkner State, which is now Coastal South, I think, and I didn't have a car. The only job I had was umpiring, so they had dormitories, so I liked the dormitory deal, and I got over there, and things just didn't pan out, and there are so many athletes that would like to get an education, would like to further their career in baseball, but it just doesn't work. And so it didn't work for me. And I chose something else. I chose to go in the Army. So I went in the Army. I went in for discipline, responsibility, and to find out if I was in love, really in love. And I did. I found out that I was in love I got the discipline and responsibility, but I came back home, got married, and had 2 beautiful daughters, 4 years apart, and 21 years later, I got a divorce.
It
So
happens.
that does happen too. So God has a plan for us all. But baseball to me has never, ever left my mind and my love. And my ability to perform on the field left me. And my ability to get a job in baseball, I never had that opportunity because I didn't go get me a degree in journalism or sports business or whatever's out there offered back then. But the love inside my heart never left me. And so the game did, and I looked around, and here I am, 170 pounds, and I didn't feel good. Married for a year or so, I had to find me a sport. So I was always been a runner, ran everywhere here and there. So I got into distance running, and I ran the Azalea Trail Run first time, and I ran a good time. I said, I can do this. So I started training hard. And my training runs were like racing just about, because I ran hard. And I did that for 20 years. And I can tell you, every run I went on, baseball. I was thinking baseball running.
Right.
So that was where my love for the game and my athleticism. But at 43 years old, I got a herniated disc from just too much running, probably overdoing it, whatever, straining. So I'd always, been involved in baseball through that 20 years of the running, doing just different things. But I had to get back into it. I had to get back into, so I started back into baseball. I became a correspondent with the Press Register. Even worked with the old Azalea City News, was here in Mobile, and just did different things as a freelance writer. And so with all that said, I was, getting my hands back in the game. And so I would never, think that I was going to really go somewhere with it, but I wanted to contribute to the community. So I'd always collected stuff. I'd always collected newspapers. I always collected sports memorabilia, baseball cards. I mean, just little things, because I've had a sports room everywhere I've lived. So I started getting all my information together and collecting it and building sports rooms, like I said. And I said, I'm the only one that's benefiting from this. I mean, I love it. I can come in here and stay here forever and just dream, from my own stuff and stuff of other players and local people. And so I eventually got to a point that I need to share this stuff, or it's just gonna, it's gonna end up in a storage building or something one day. So I started my Facebook page, and I started sharing all sorts of information, and people just seemed to come out of the woodwork, old baseball people. I mean, and it just feels so good to communicate with people on Facebook with just old memorabilia about people, because it's for the people. Everything that I post is for the people. And I didn't mean to be so long-winded of that story, but
No, that's good.
That's kind of like where I came from with baseball and running and who I am.
So I want to ask you, Joey, since you bring that up, you said you started working as a correspondent for some of the local papers around here that were here at the time. Did working on sort of the media / journalism / writing side of covering baseball, did that give you any kind of a different perspective on the sport that you love? Coming from a player to now you're somebody who is covering the teams in the area. You're covering game by game. You're writing. You're keeping track of stats and box scores. Did that just reignite a love for baseball for you? Did it give you a different outlook on it? Just talk about that time where you're kind of working as a writer covering baseball as opposed to a player.
Okay. Well, as a player, I knew that as a catcher coming up, I'm small. And as a catcher, I loved the position. I knew how to play the position. I would play the position today a whole lot different than the catcher does. I'd teach it if I was a coach, but I'm not. So as a player, I knew that my game was over, and I knew I wasn't a coach. But I saw so many of my friends that I grew up with and players that I competed against in high school and in junior college that were successful, that had that desire and that ethic and that work and that determination to continue. And I saw them be so successful. And then I started thinking about, wow, I'm so proud of them. So proud of them. And they're representing a city here in Mobile where they grew up. And I grew up with them. And they're in the shadows of Hank Aaron and Satchel Paige and Billy Williams and Willie McCovey and Ozzie Smith, our 5 Hall of Famers. Not to mention, like I said before, Cleon Jones and Tommy Agee, Amos Otis, Frank Boland, Milt Boland, and the list goes on, really. And these successful people were not just baseball players. Some of them became scouts. Some of them became coaches. Some of them become general managers. One, Dan Jennings, was a general manager with the Tampa Bay Devil Rays, went to the Florida Marlins. They fired the coach, and they took the general manager and put him on the field. He, as a manager, he says, well, the only way I'm going to manage is if I can go get Mike Goff as being my coach. Mike had already made it to the top with the Seattle Mariners in 2005 to 2007 as a coach, had played some professional baseball, but he never quit. And so they combined at Miami, and they had the time of their life for about 3/4 of a year.
Right.
And Danny stayed with the Marlins out until some things happened. Then he went to the Washington Nationals. They won a World Series. And time ran out. They had a different management come in, so they cleaned house. And now he's in the Detroit Tigers organization. He's got 35-plus years in Major League Baseball practically. And it's those guys that inspired me to, dig in and research where they came from and cheerlead for them and put stuff out there and tell people that may not know, how good these guys are doing in the sport of baseball. And that's another long-winded answer, but that's the truth.
But it's cool though that your goal has been to shed a light on the coaches and scouts and players that come out of this area, because there are so many. I mean, there's plenty that we don't know about.
Absolutely.
But I mean, the Hall of Fame walk that's up there now. I mean, those stories deserve to be told. I think it's so cool that you've made such an effort to tell those stories. There's so many unheard of names, and we get to learn that through a lot of what you do with the Baseball Connection, your Facebook page.
I appreciate that because I spend time with it and I love it. It's not work. I stay up late. Now that I'm retired, even when I was working, I stayed up late. Mm-hmm. And I focus on the high school and it's seasonal. But when I'll get messages all the time, and I write the people's names down that message me. Oh, I was from this school this year, and I'm gonna get to them eventually. I promise you. But I can go in some of my sources. And I can pull stuff up, and I love it. I love it. And some of the old newspapers, it's not really, the print's not as good. And sometimes I have to skip over some stories, but I can get stuck on one sports page for hours. And then my sports page collection, oh, my goodness. Oh, man, I've got thousands of newspapers and sports pages. And I have people, I put it out there for people to donate them. Don't throw them away. And I have had a lot of people donate boxes of newspapers, old newspapers and old media guides and old stuff that other people may not value the way I do. And it's not for a worth, it's just for the memory and the history is what I collect it for. And to go back and read about, God, I met this fella and I didn't realize he was that good or she was that good back in their day. And then if I put it out there, my goal is if I put something out there that might be 5, 10, it's better when it's 40 years old. It puts a smile on people's face. Yes. At least I feel it does.
Yes.
Oh,
if it puts a smile on somebody's face, I have done something good.
Joey, I can tell you this from personal experience as somebody who, I am not the biggest baseball fan. I am much more basketball and football. Those were the sports that I loved growing up. But it never fails that when I see one of your posts that show a newspaper clipping from 1980 something, it makes me smile every time, because there's something about the history of not just the newspaper and how the newspaper mattered at a certain time, but the sports writing in newspapers and how that coverage was really the main coverage of sports back then. And to kind of take a step back into memory lane, you're not reading it on a you're not reading a website's article about a baseball player. This was something that somebody spent time writing that is now, it's not going anywhere because you have it and you continue to post it. So I think, to me, that's the most beautiful part about it, and that's the thing that I love the most about it. So
that's so cool. I can remember my daddy used to recycle newspapers. They had over the church. I lived across the street from Holy Family Catholic Church, and they had a trailer over there which everybody took their newspapers. And back then, I'm not going to say the word obsessed, because it's not an obsession. It's just a passion to keep this old news. But in today's world, I'd spend all day in that trailer if they were around. But people don't really recycle like that anymore. But people are just throwing their newspapers away. And you mentioned something about newspapers a minute ago. Our sports page, we've had some of the best sports writers come through Mobile, and some of them are still out there covering for, big organizations. I won't say newspapers, because the internet just did away with everything. But it's not the same looking on even the box score, for sure. And I still read them, not on the major league level as much, but high school. That's why I'm so much in high school. It's not like a newspaper. People value newspapers because your aunts and uncles and your grandparents and your cousins and your friends could read about you and on a Sunday morning or a Wednesday morning after a ball game on a Tuesday night, say, and you're the one, not me, but the player is the one that did the performance to get the headline. And, people would clip that. I was one of the clippers, and then I stopped clipping and said, let me just save the whole paper.
Sure.
And I'll clip later if I need to. But, and then you could make frames, and, you could put it on the wall, and it just meant more. You can't print something off the internet, put it in a frame, and know that the people that meant something to you saw that and appreciated that and will remember that. Because all we do is surf on the internet from one place to another and go here, go there.
And we're probably not all reading the same thing the way the newspaper was, where everyone got the same copy of the newspaper,
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
I want to talk a little bit more about some of, stories that stick out to you. I mean, you've been covering and keeping up with all this for a long time. Do you have any stories from, maybe games that happened in the Mobile area, maybe a specific player? I mean, we were talking outside before we came in here with our senior executive producer, Kip Rayleigh, and Kevin Rayleigh, the head coach at UMS, right, is his older brother. And y'all were chatting it up before. I just want to know if you have any stories that really stick out to you.
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. If I can, this right here, I don't know if you can see it, but that's the last book that I self-published. And 2023, I started in 2017 with my book, and each year I would, revise it. And in 2023, I just kind of had other things going on, but I plan to go back and, put it back together. But Mobile, Alabama, I'll go to bat with any city in the country, any city in the world, which that's not too competitive with us because we used to be America's game, but our city has produced some of the greatest baseball players ever. And I've got an all-star team that I put together, kind of like a fantasy team. And, some of these guys, may not have made it to the major leagues, but I still think that they're as good as the ones that did. Mm-hmm. And but Mobile from the major league level to the Hall of Fame to, like I mentioned before, the Negro Leagues, the minor league baseball. Minor league baseball in Mobile started back in the before the turn of the century, before the 1900s, like in 1886 or something like that. But that's historically going way back. But in my lifetime, some of the memories are just thousands and countless memories. But I'll say this much about the Hall of Famers that made it and made Mobile what it is, and the Negro League players and the McGill players that have paved the way for the others to follow their footsteps. In the late 60s, South Alabama was originated, I think, 1965, and they came up with a baseball team. Mel Lucas, who just passed away, was the first baseball coach at South Alabama. And Jack Tillman and Pat Galley. Jack Tillman was a great prize fighter here in Mobile. He was ranked in the world at one time. Him and Pat Galley, who was a coach at UMS, track and field and cross country for years and years and years, was one of the best ever. Him, Pat Galley, and Jack Tillman were two of the first players signed by Mel Lucas. Well, Jack found out that he couldn't really play because he was a fighter, and he had started professional boxing. So Jack was a really good pitcher in high school and was a good pitcher. Pat Galley was a good player. His daddy, Stan Galley, coached at Spring Hill College for 25 years. And he made it to the big leagues just for like one or two at bats, but he made it. And that's they call it having a cup of coffee.
Sure, but hey,
that's a good cup of coffee.
There's a lot of the Mobilians that have done that. So Pat Galley and Jack Tillman, and several others from around the area here were the originators for the South Alabama baseball program. But in 1969, we got a man down here named Eddie Stanky. And I'm going to tell you something, man. Eddie Stanky, I never got to play for him, of course. I never really got to know him, never met him. But I promise you, you can go on my Facebook page. I can put his name in, and you could just have to scroll for hours to read about him.
Right.
Eddie Stanky brought baseball to Mobile, to the University of South Alabama, and did wonders in the early 70s, all the way to 1983, I think it was his last season. But he had a wonderful major league career. He came through Mobile back in the minor leagues and married his wife. And when he got to South Alabama, he put them on the national level to where they competed with everybody in the country, a powerhouse that never made it to Omaha. And he would recruit him and Coach Jim Crawford as assistant, and Ricky Patterson came in behind him as an assistant, and they just recruited some of the best players in the United States. And then we had local players that they went out and got, and they just had a competitive program. And then Steve Kitchell in '84 came in. He for 28 years he did the same thing. Still never made it to Omaha, but put competitive teams on the field. And I can't leave out Mark Calvey. He's doing a great job over there. He's in his 15th year. So South Alabama's only had 4 coaches, actually 5, because Jim Crawford filled in a year when Stanky went out for heart surgery one year, 1980, I think. Maybe it may have been 81. But those are memories with South Alabama. Where the Mitchell Center sits today was a field called Jaguar Field. Jaguar Field is also the softball field name. I don't know why they did that, because Jaguar Field is historic. They should have retired that name.
Right, right.
But that's the university's decision. But they had 13 and 14-year-old field on the other side of that, right beside it. Actually, the Jaguars played there, too. The Jags played at Municipal Park as well, or in the early stages. But that brought baseball to Mobile, and back to Mobile, I should say. And it was fun as a 13, 14-year-old, or even younger than that, watching the Jags play against – sometimes they'd have 3,000 fans and wooden bleachers. And it was a dirt road right out there in front. And they didn't have all the glamour and glitz that today's game has, even on every level. Every level, I think that's the downfall of baseball, is they think everything's got to be perfect, and it doesn't. Baseball is an easy game. It's a competitive game. It's a kid's game.
Mm-hmm.
And major leaguers are getting paid way too much money to play a kid's game. And I heard on the radio today or yesterday that the Atlanta Braves are giving Chris Sale $27 million. And he's been hurt. He's 37 years old. He's a great pitcher. But do you know there's thousands of great pitchers just as good as him? He don't deserve $27 million. I think he's a great guy, but come on. Yeah. Spread that money around.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Well, I wonder that kind of leads into something I was going to ask you, with how much the media landscape and coverage of sports has changed, and players are starting younger, and I was listening to someone the other day talk about how in basketball, players are a lot farther along in their development now than they were 20, 30 years ago, and they were speculating that a lot of that has to do with access to YouTube videos on this is how you shoot a correct jump shot, and kids being able to find that stuff at a much younger age. Do you think that some of that is a part of baseball also, where there is so much media coverage of it, the money is out of control, especially in the major leagues. Do you feel that any of that's hurt the game at all as time's gone on, or do you still see baseball as the sport that you fell in love with, when you were a kid?
I love your question. I love the way you put it together. And there's several questions in there
right.
with several answers. What I feel is you're right. They're learning a lot, the players are. The players in baseball, in every sport really, every sport. They're bigger, they're stronger, they're faster. And, they've got the facilities and maybe the eating habits, the work habits, the coaching. You mentioned the YouTube videos. I think you hit it on the spot right there. I think a lot of the younger kids that are playing on their phones, the ones that really love baseball, are learning a lot from that because they can, more so probably than out on the field. And I say this because I'm watching. Well, I've seen the trends as an umpire. I'm an umpire, and I have been forever. I took 15 years off at one time, but I got into umpiring travel ball last year, and I'd always, stayed away from travel ball because I always heard it's about money, money, money. Well, I got into it, and there's money to be made for an umpire, and there's money being spent. I ask some questions every now and then about what, how much, this, But I watch. One of my main goals when I started umpiring was to observe and to try to take in what's happening on the travel ball level. They have I think it's 8 and under to 12. Well, I normally call 8 and under to 12 and under.
Sure.
Not really 9 and under to 12 and under.
Right.
And I'm very, very impressed with the abilities of these players. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing. The bats are different. Mm-hmm. The balls are different. The fields are much different. We call over at Daphne Sports Complex in Saraland, the land, which is it's beautiful, but it's turf. The mounds of boards under a covering, and it's good. It's a good facility, but the players, you can tell that they're way ahead of when myself and you were growing up, and Emily were growing up, because they're getting it somewhere, and the coaches are good, but they're not that good.
Right.
These players, and I'm impressed with the players. 95% of them are cordial, courteous, and just good kids. And sometimes I think that they're getting bored with the game. And not all of them, but when I don't want to shoot myself in the foot as an umpire, because I work for my money out there, and I try to do the best I can everywhere I go stepping on the field. But some of these kids are just good athletes, and they're when you play on a field that's pretty good. It's like the major leaguers. From what I've heard in spring training, some of the players, they just have to show up and do their reps or whatever they call it, go take their 200 ground balls and they can leave or whatever. I don't know how much truth there is to that. It depends on whatever organization, I guess. But these travel ball players, they're respectful to the umpires. They're respectful to the coaches. The parents are very proud of them. And sometimes the parents are, you can tell when a player's at bat and you hear something from the bleachers, it's usually a parent of the player batting when it's a bad call,
right.
Not me.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, man. Well, Joey, I want to talk about, you basically spearheaded the very first high school baseball media night. And I know that that's a big thing. It's been down here for football. I think volleyball has it as well. I think they just had a soccer media days. But this was the first baseball media night we had for high school teams. And I just want to know, when did you kind of decide that you wanted to do that? And where did that idea kind of come from?
Good question, Emily. Good question. I've been covering high school baseball on my Mobile Baseball Connections Facebook page for quite a while, but I've really been, y'all used the word spearheaded earlier. I like that. Spearheaded this program that I didn't come up with. I was asked to do it by the Midtown Optimist Club. Ernie Rogers approached me at a football game one night, and he asked me if I want to do it. Well, the bells and whistles started going off in my head. Man, I can do this. I can do that. I had all these ideas, and it took me a while to start getting it done, and they were supportive. But I started doing more and more, and I went back into my time of when I was a player and what it felt like to read that newspaper and read the stories the next morning or the clips or whatever. So I just wanted to do that for the players. I wanted them to be able to relive the game the night before through a newspaper article or whatever, or whatever I could do to promote it on my Facebook page. So one thing led to another, and these awards luncheons are for the players that have an outstanding performance. Mm-hmm. And I have to read the box scores, every one of them. We talked about box scores earlier. Box scores coming up for the older generation in the newspapers was the best thing in the world. Mm-hmm. You could read a box score and know exactly what happened in the game, except for some of the defensive heroics. But anyway, I felt like, over the years, I probably started thinking about a media day or a media night a few years ago, and I knew that football, I've seen some stuff y'all have covered on football, but I've never been to one. Mm-hmm. And I've seen these press conferences after college football games, and they're usually pretty good. And so I didn't really know what kind of format to start out with. But it never really surfaced, It never really surfaced. We had some, the Mobile Mobs just put on a senior showdown baseball game. And at the end of the season a couple of years ago, I think Joe Connick did it last year as well. But that was kind of a bring together some all-stars and stuff. But I felt like, let's do something that doesn't involve awards to where we can get some recognition and don't have to, highlight players for their performance. Let the coaches and players talk a little bit. Because at our awards luncheons, the players don't really talk much. Mm-hmm. The coaches talk for the players, and they show their pride for the players and what they've done for them. But this past travel ball season I umpired with a big black guy. His name's Jeremy Amey. In fact, we did 30 games together, the most I did with anybody. And he asked me early in the season, in the spring season, he asked me when he first started calling. He says, what do you think about doing a media night? He says, why don't we partner up and do a media night? I said, that sounds good, But then again, I went to the Philippines for like I do, every 4 or 5 months. I got me a girlfriend over there.
Hey, there we go.
She's a good woman. She's a good woman. I've been there 5 times the last 2 years.
Oh, wow.
We travel all over. But anyway, I got back from one of my trips, and we're calling out here in the fall. And Jeremy says it again. He said, man, have you thought more about the media night? I said, well, I have, but I don't really know where we should go with or how we should go with it, because if we could get people to get involved in it. So came back from another trip, and while I was in the Philippines, I was trying to do some organizational stuff for it, through contacts, the coaches, the players, getting a venue to have it at. And then either way, Jeremy Amy, he's a coach at Chickasaw Chieftains. He was my motivation to get us together as a partnership, to work together to get this thing off the ground. And he did a lot to help out from his side with his strengths and talents. And I, spearheaded with contacting the coaches and getting a venue. It was really too much for the Midtown Optimist Club, because we were having our meetings at the Azalea City Golf Course Clubhouse. And Ray Pappas and Rick Bradley at Dreamland Barbecue were helpful in providing a venue. And sponsors like Desi Tobias with Tobias and Comer, and Skipper Walters with Walters Control, Bill Kleinstroke with Trans, what is it, Trans? Oh, gosh, Bill, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
Trans World Business Solution, and Will Swift at DBAT, and Wes Williams with Will 2, and Colin Fuquay with Navigating Transportation. I'm going to go down the list if y'all don't mind.
Absolutely.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Brian Munger and Deborah Munger, Jeremy Manhattan, Katie McLeod, Kristen Duke, Luke and Jake Peavy are going to be instrumental this year with
that's cool.
with our awards luncheons. Aaron Rubel, Dan Farrell, Rick Cleveland.
We
he
love
did
Rick.
a great job.
Him and Kip are good buddies. They golf
Yeah,
together.
is that right?
Yeah.
I called Rick today. He was on the course. I don't know if Kit was with him or not, but Dalton Org with 106.5, because that's where Rick has his prep sports report on Saturday mornings. And but going back to Jeremy Amy, we're partners now, basically, in what we're going to try to do for the luncheons and the media night. I contacted 26 members of the media, and I write these. I keep score with all that stuff.
Sure.
And it's not that I'm not really keeping score, but I just try to keep it organized. And I got a really good response, in the beginning, and but Emily, with Box 10. Thanks again so much for coming out. It made the players feel like they were, special. And WKRG, Peter Albrecht, and his director, Gerhard.
Gerhard,
I try to pronounce his, I haven't learned his last name the best. Gerhard was good at assigning a camera person, media person to come out there. He stayed for a long time. And the Gulf Coast media, Matt.
I know their guy's name. I'm drawing a blank on it.
But anyway, I'm sorry, but he was wonderful and did a great job. But it all pulled together. We didn't have food, but we had iced tea, and we had a really good turnout.
A lot of teams showed up. You had a lot of them.
29 teams.
Wow.
29 teams showed up, and we had 3 collegiate teams, University of Mobile, Bishop State, James Hattenstein at Bishop State. Kyle Friday brought his players out there after their game. I think you had left by then.
Yeah.
You had to work on the story, but you spent a lot of time out there, and it made the night. But and Coach Michael Neal over at University, the United States Sports University.
Yeah.
He stayed for him and James Hattenstein were kind of like, I don't know if they were recruiting, but they were supporting the night, and they were there at the full 4 hours. And James had to get up at 6 in the morning to go on a road trip the next morning with his team, and he brought Jamal Wyndham out there. He was his assistant coach and some of his players, but so many of the coaches brought their players and participated, and a lot of the parents stayed back in the back and were interested in it, and it did so much for the recognition of the players and the support from the media with just Rick and Emily and KRG and Gulf Coast Media. for being there. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm disappointed in the rest of the ones that couldn't come, but it was their opportunity to get to know some of the players and get to hear some of the coaches and players speak. And they some of them had different assignments that night, and they had different reasons they couldn't come. But I hope that they'll get on board with supporting high school baseball, not just the 2026 season, but for the future, because it does inspire the players to see that the media is behind them, and not just the players. But my philosophy is it's for the players, it's for the coaches, it's for the teams, it's for the schools, and it's for the parents. And that's the ones that are making it go right there.
Well, and what I loved most about it, we were kind of talking before we started about this podcast and some of the stuff that we try and do with our high school coverage. And we did these all region teams this year for football that got a really good response because parents and players get to see their name with a Fox 10 logo next to it, and it's like, oh my gosh, like it feels like it's the biggest thing in the world. And media days, what you put on for baseball is another thing where the more over the top coverage we can give these high school athletes and these high school sports, I think it also makes coaches be more reciprocal to us, and want to be a part of that kind of stuff because, we have hard times getting stats sometimes for football 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And now that they've seen all the stuff that we do, they're a lot more, I know if I give them what they need, our players will be able to be recognized and be noticed by the news. And I think your media days does that as well with baseball. So that's what I love about it, it's mass coverage of the high school athletes in our area. And it's kind of surprising that we hadn't had that before in a way,
It's also nice that we get to meet all the head coaches. We get to meet these players, and we find out, okay, you don't just play for Davidson High School. Oh, you're the starting pitcher at Davidson High School, and this is what you've done. It's just we get to connect with them more, and I think that's so important because everyone talks about the starting quarterback at Saraland, and everyone's talking about the star wide receiver at McGill-Tulane, but I want that to be the same thing for baseball.
Yeah.
I want us to be talking about those kids just as much as we're talking about the football kids, and knowing the head coaches and where they're at and what their season's going to potentially look like. I think it was just a great opportunity, and I think if you keep doing it every year, it's only going to continue to grow the sport. I
agree with you completely. And again, having two news stations, TV stations out there, I was so happy to see. You told me you were coming, and I was fired up. I was fired up because I knew y'all were coming. And Gerhardt said he's been sending KRG out there, and Peter Albrecht did too. So I was kind of assured there. But you're right. Next year, I hope we can make it bigger and better, and just enjoy it, and the schools will really look forward to that.
Yes.
And it does wonders, and it's just something that I've looked at it as a huge success.
Yes, I think so too. Real quick before we move off of it, so you said two names right there when you were talking about the people that helped you kind of put this thing together. You mentioned a Minhinnett. I'm wondering, is that any relation to Jeremy Minhinnett, who was just the starting quarterback at Mary G. Montgomery this past season? That's
right, Jeremy Minhinnett. And I think that his father has the same name, I think.
Yeah, okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, and Jeremy's a great guy. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's a great athlete. I worked for the Call News for a little bit and covered football games. I used to do that with the Press Register for 10 years as well. But I covered some St. Luke's games, and I watched him play last year as a quarterback. And there were some good players at Cooper Frampton and the Tillman brothers, and they were a good team. They were scrappy.
Cameron Roberts.
Yes. And I love the guy that does the press box. I love working up there with him. But I watched Jeremy, and Jeremy, he had a tough go with it at St. Luke's, but I knew he was a tough player. And he's a good baseball player, too. And now he's in a good spot. He had a great year as a quarterback at Mary Montgomery, like you said, and he's a good baseball player. And he's going places as a young man, and that's what we want out of these young athletes is for them to remember their days playing sports, but to become professionals. I've seen so many of them do it. So many of them that are so successful, that went to school with my daughter, and 2 daughters. I've had a daughter that went to St. Paul's and then McGill. And there's a long story behind both. But anyway, it was a lot of fun at both those schools. But anyway, yes, sir, that's Jeremy Manhattan. And some of the other names I mentioned are just support. They've supported me. And there's a handful or a couple of handfuls or a box of people that do support what I do on my Facebook page. And when it gets into the season, the stuff that I write about, the players I write about, the stats that I keep, it gets to be, sometimes it can get hectic because I have to scratch and crawl and dig, get the stats or get the finishes or whatever, and it gets real fast. It's real fast. There's so many games. So I can't keep up with it the way I would really like, and I'd like to do everything by hand. I don't like to do spreadsheets and all that kind of stuff. But and some of the parents are, well, that was my child. He did this, and you got that wrong, blah blah blah. But and I do make mistakes, and I got some guys out there, Walt Sims for one in Baldwin County. Hey, he sees my mistakes. Oh man, I didn't really mean to do that, but thanks. Well, I'll go in there and fix it. But there's a lot of people I give credit for that help me, and they send in stories, and they send in. Some of them don't want to have a byline, so to speak, or a submitted by. Before I got into writing a long time ago, a byline. I want a byline, man. I want to say that's written by me. Yep. And now that doesn't mean anything.
Right. Yeah.
Because I'm not really a reporter. I'm a reporter, but I report
it's like freelance.
What happened.
Yes.
Yeah, you know. But I can creative write.
Right.
But and I'll tell you what I can really do is I can critical write, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to go out there and put out fake news and all that.
Yep.
And I didn't realize Donald Trump used to talk about fake news. I said, what? But now you go on Facebook, my goodness.
Yes. Yes.
Well, before we move on from, I know a big topic at high school baseball media night was the separation of public and private schools. You asked the question to a couple different head coaches. I know Mobile Christian in particular. He had a couple things to say. Faith Academy's head coach, Matt Seymour, and then. But yeah, I just kind of want to talk about that and what you think about it in particular. I mean, it's still seems to be kind of chaotic right now when it comes to the public-private split.
You're right. Exactly right. Going back to the media night for a minute. We didn't really know how. Me and Jeremy had an idea of how it was going to unfold, but we really didn't know until we got there that night of how we were going to do it. And you probably remember, how are we going to do this? And Rick had not showed up yet. Yeah. When Rick got there, it didn't matter to me how we were going to do it, but we had somewhat of a plan. But those questions I was asking, when I went around that first time, I was just trying to budget the time we had, and those questions I was asking, they just come off the top of my head. Yeah. But the thing is, it was a good question about the private and public school split, because it's a topic I don't think some of those coaches don't want to talk about, but they're probably, I think a lot of them are disappointed. But when I went to Stu, who's a private school, and then I bypassed Matt.
The first time, he thought he'd gotten away from the question.
I did that on purpose. Because I know Matt Seymour, I know Stu, I know all these coaches. They're great guys.
Oh, they're all fantastic.
I mean, some of these older coaches, there's not much time left in them on the field, but they've done wonders, and I applaud every one of them. But then I went to Coach Brett Boutwell, who's got him a couple of state championships under his belt when he's at UMS. He's a great coach at Saraland. Brett was a good ball player too, and he runs a sure enough program at Saraland. And he was good with his response. And then I think I went to Davidson, which is another public school, and they're just trying to get back to where they were at one time. And Coach Zach Presnall over there does a great job. And then I came back to Matt.
To Matt. He had a good response.
He did. And that's Matt. Yeah, and that's his philosophy
honest.
With the game.
He was honest.
He's a great coach. He came up a great player. Played with the Mobile Bay Sharks. That's one thing about memories we didn't get on earlier was the Bay Sharks and the Bay Bears. But anyway, I think his response about it was, we're here to play baseball, and whoever's we're playing against, let's do it.
Yeah.
And he's loaded with talent this year. So I think their philosophies on it were all good ones. Mm-hmm. My personal feelings on it, I'm old school, just like all these other coaches are, and older parents. The game has changed so much. Baseball has changed with every generation. And back in the 60s, I mentioned earlier in 48 was McGill. And then you came in the 60s, the teams that were real good were, you had Sims. Sims was high school back then. UMS was good. McGill was good. Murphy. Mm-hmm. Murphy had some of the greatest teams ever before 1970, in the mid-60s. And then in the 70s, Davidson had a really good program. And Murphy continued to have a great program. BC Rain was competitive in the 70s. Shaw High School, where I went, was competitive. All these teams, Mary Montgomery, these were the teams that were public school teams, and it was public school baseball. And there were private schools. They played under the AISA, the Alabama Independent
School
Athletics
Association.
Yes.
Yep.
AIASA.
Yep.
But anyway, your faith academies, Mobile Christian, had Greystone, Evangel. I'm leaving one out. It's critical. St. Paul's.
Yeah. Andy Robbins.
How can I leave out St. Paul's?
That's a big one.
But Andy's had a great career over there.
He's been there a long time.
Yes, he has. Jerry Strang used to coach out there, and they had a lot of success. Mm-hmm. Bob Rutledge was the headmaster, and a great program. But St. Paul's, in my time, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, but St. Paul's, UMS, Faith Academy, these public schools that are now struggling, were 3A, a lot of them. Some of them 2A. But we were 4A because that's all it went was to the 4A. Mm-hmm. And times have changed. And with the education that these private schools offer, you can't blame parents for wanting their kids to get. I went through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I went through it, and you can't blame parents that have a child with a that's capable of having a good education, getting a good education, and going to college, getting a college scholarship through their athleticism at a private school. You can't blame a parent.
It's also the city schools. I mean, we've talked about it. The facilities that some of these schools have, like Saraland's facilities, Gulf Shores, Orange Beach. I mean, the city schools' facilities are top notch. That's hard for even a private school to compete with.
It really is, and that's the change that's come about. It's like the football stadiums. Everybody wants a football stadium. Williamson, it took them forever to get their football stadium because they had Ladd Stadium right next door. Poor old Ladd Stadium, which I think they should keep it there forever because I'm a landmark guy.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't get the attention it needs. But the private, the Alabama High School Athletic Association, this private public thing, they're trying to organize it whatever way they are. It's a chaotic mess, and I don't understand it, and I don't think a lot of the coaches understand it. But what they're doing, they're separating the schools, and they're going to separate, like one of the coaches said, it might have been Matt, that when it gets to the state tournament, state finals, it's going to take a little bit of fun out of the game, from rivalries that have been built. Yeah. It's like it's in the news, in football, McGill-Murphy rivalries gone for this year.
Of the Cannon. Yeah.
And that tradition, which is great for high schoolers. My daughter went through that. Police chased them off. Police.
Yeah, painting the cannon. Yeah.
But anyway, and I'll tell you what I feel for. And I mentioned the Mobile Mobsters earlier. Joe Connick and James Hattenstein created this group, and they used to help they still do. They help the inner city schools. And in some of the schools, Murphy, BC Rain, Williamson, Blunt, Viger, LaFleur, and I'll throw in two more schools. I think these schools that I just mentioned, and I'll put Davidson in there, and Chickasaw. And I'm not trying to downgrade these schools for any coaches or any parents that might be listening. This is just an idea that I have, and it probably would never work. Alabama High School Athletic Association, I don't know if they'd ever consider it. And I'm talking about baseball, because these schools in basketball and football, it's a whole different game.
Yeah.
I mean, baseball's, the talent level, and getting the kids to participate. You got to have feeder programs for these high schools as well. Mm-hmm. Travel ball is a good feeder program. The park ball is practically gone. Mm-hmm. The recreational type game. It used to be that your neighborhood people played at the same parks.
Yep.
That doesn't exist anymore. The middle school levels, some of the middle schools, they don't have enough participation. They don't have the resources. They don't have the equipment. And they don't have the players interested. We've got to get back to where they're interested so they can help these schools that they're going to end up going to, these public schools, so they can get back to where they need to be. It's a shame that Murphy High School is going through the problems that they're going through. Davison was a very successful team, a school, in baseball. BC Rain, like I mentioned before, these were hard-nosed baseball programs that sent players on to big colleges and into professional level. And that's what's happening with the inner city schools, so-called, or whatever. But they need some help. Mm-hmm. But my idea is let these teams, put these 8 schools in a division and let them play, and split it up into 4 teams each, and let them play each other, and let them compete against each other, and not have to play against a team that's going to blow them out. It's been going on for years, and these coaches know it, and there's really no way to change it, I guess, unless you just did it.
Yeah.
But it's just completely different resource availability for these different schools, and it almost seems a little unfair sometimes for our inner city schools.
It does. If you've got schools that have business owners that can contribute money, and that would go specifically into that baseball program, that helps that program wherever it is. And some of these other schools, they don't have that. Mm-hmm. And these players are not motivated to get out there and use their talents. And even it's even coming down to some of the problems, like you mentioned before, about the facilities that Saraland and Orange Beach and Gulf Shores have. Yes, it's beautiful. Schools. It's beautiful. And Faith Academy's got some nice stuff. And that's impressive to a young player, but until that I tell you, I'm lost for words right now, because it's sad that some of the players are not getting the opportunities, because they're not. The talent's got to be out there in these schools, and they can play more than basketball and football. They can play baseball. And say for St. Luke's, for instance, is on the private level. Coach Mike Szymanski, he's the oldest one of all of us out there, and he's done wonders for baseball. And he's struggling. I think he's got a small squad, and he's lost players for transfer. Won't even get on the college level with the transfer portal and the NIL, because it's trickling down.
Yeah,
and
100%.
Everybody's seen it. Everybody's seen it. They've seen it coming for years. Nobody can tell me that Nick Saban didn't retire because he saw it was coming. And it's just collegiate sports is horrible.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all probably as big as college football fans as anybody. All three of us in this room, we know that. But we lose interest. We're going to cheer for what it is.
Yes.
But it's the adults that have done it. The adults is the ones that come up with all the money. The agents have done all the negotiating, and the head coaches have allowed it. I mean, there was always been $100 handshakes.
Yep.
There's always been all this stuff going on. But, hey, this is kind of like what the change is. Why didn't they leave it the way it was? And everybody says, they deserve to be paid. Maybe so. I don't agree with it. I think that if a player is going to get a full ride scholarship or a big portion scholarship in football, that's a pretty good benefit. They didn't do that forever for some of the greatest players that ever played the game.
Yep.
And baseball, I think they've changed it a little bit, but baseball gets the root end of the deal.
Out of everybody.
11.9, 11.3 scholarships. I don't know if it's changed or not, but that's horrible.
Yep.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm getting on a rant with it.
Well, no, it's interesting that you mentioned St. Luke's baseball and them having problems kind of keeping players now, because the last 2 years we've done really big previews for the football teams before the season starts. And a lot of that is going through the rosters and seeing who's coming back, who graduated, whose key players are returning. And one thing I've noticed with St. Luke's the last 2 years is their roster is decimated in the offseason by other schools coming in and poaching some of their best football players. And, at a certain point, I thought that was what the goal was for the HSAA was to try and fix this issue. And I don't know, it feels like with the division of public and private, like we were talking about, I don't see how that solves any of those. It's almost like we've punted on that problem, and now we're just creating a new problem with this public and private split. So, I don't know where it goes, but it's not stopping the transferring and the recruiting of players and these travel teams that feed into certain schools, but not all schools. I don't know. I don't know where it ends up, but it's clearly affecting every sport to a certain level. So
I agree with you completely. It's and it's been around. It's been around. It used to be that there was a district. Each school had a district, and you had to live in that district to be able to play. And you had to be. And there's been people that's used grandma's address.
Right.
I had a friend of mine, Mark Higgins. He made it to the big leagues. His mom and dad used to run Hibbett Sporting Goods, and Mark got in some trouble. He wouldn't quit chewing tobacco back then, so they kicked him off the team at Mary Montgomery.
Right.
So he comes over to Shaw. We loved it because me and Mark grew up playing against each other. He's a great player, man. And what they did it fairly. They did it right. They packed up their stuff at their home in Sims, and they moved over to Shaw District, and they did it right. And Mark played his second half of the sophomore year, junior year, and senior year at Shaw. But that's just an example of somebody doing it right.
Right.
And I'm, it's amazing how players end up over the years. I'm saying, have end up at another school. Just so happens, and there's been there was people a long time ago that approached me wanting me to, do stories on it and all that. I didn't want to get involved in all that.
No. Yeah.
Right. I want to get along with everybody.
Mad.
Like I said earlier, I could be a critical writer.
Sure.
I don't need that attention. I'm not Paul Feinbaum. I don't start fires and I can't put out.
Oh, man. Well, we're getting towards the end of our time here. Just quickly before we kind of wrap things up, who are some teams that you could think that we really probably need to watch out for this season? Who's going to be the teams to watch?
Okay. Well, some of them, I tell you.
You talked a little bit about Faith Academy, how they're going to have a good squad this year.
Right. Yeah. Faith is loaded. They're off to a good start. Brody Wilson fired a no-hitter at Mary Montgomery, his first outing.
Awesome.
And then they've came back. I think they had another no-hitter this past weekend.
Oh, wow.
Okay.
And they're hitting the ball real good, and they've got great coaching. They've got great support. Faith Academy's going to be good.
Okay.
St. Paul's, again, Andy Robbins. And again, Matt Seymour. Matt Seymour with Faith Academy.
Yeah.
Way to go, Matt. And the support they get from their parents is just great. St. Paul's, they are who they are.
Yeah.
And Andy Robbins has he's had a great career. Andy knows as well as anybody that he needs another state championship. They came so close last year.
Yeah, they did.
And it was just an amazing run for them. This could be the year. I hope it is for Andy and his group. He's got some great players. John Stowers is off to an amazing start. He's already hit 4 home runs.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
And
he had
he's-
a really good season last season.
Right, yes, he did. And even before that, he had with home runs, he was only hit 11 home. I said he only hit 11 home runs
Right.
last year. I think he hit 15 or 16 the year before. But he's committed to Auburn, but I think he's going to go high in the draft. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
And he's one of the best catchers in the country. Tate Farrell, he's a pitcher. Tate, it was a pretty good strikeout race last year with Tate and Bradley Irish from St. Paul's for the most strikeouts, and Tate Farrell won 101 to 100.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my goodness. A nail biter.
Yeah, Tate had a good outing his first start. And they've got another second baseman. His name is, where is he at? Evan Hawara. And he's a second baseman for St. Paul's. He's a really good player, putting up some good numbers. Let's see. Ty Walters, who's signed with Samford. I think he's playing shortstop this year, but he can play all over. He's a really good player at UMS.
At UMS. Yeah,
That's
he was
right.
one of our Player of the Week guys. Yeah, he's also a pretty good pitcher.
Yes, he's got a great arm. He led the county in triples last year. He had 6.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
He's a great player. Over at St. Louis, you got Cooper Frampton. He's only a junior.
Yep.
Cooper's like 6'3", 230, and he's
goodness.
maturing. He's
Big
maturing.
boy.
He's got a brother named Walker too, and he's coming around too. Colton Duke is another good player with St. Luke's as well. We mentioned Jeremy Manhattan earlier at MGM. Bryce Rivers is transferred from Mobile Christian to Saraland. He's a solid 400 hitter. He's looking to have another good season. Caton Helton is gonna have a good year at Mobile Christian. Satsuma's got a couple of good players with Cooper Crenshaw and Darius Kapua, I think is the way you pronounce that. They've got a new coach over there, Thomas James. They're off to a 4-0 start at Satsuma.
Okay.
So-
Go Satsuma.
Then you over in Baldwin County, you've got I failed to mention a couple of guys. Manning Amorde, I think that's how you say it. Manning Amorde. He plays for UMS. He's only 7 for 7 so far. He's hitting 1,000.
Oh, my gosh. That's crazy.
Evan Daigle at McGill has had a 5 RBI night, I think opening night. And Cade Mason had a no-hitter for 5 innings for Saraland in his opening night. And he must have had an arm trouble or whatever, pitch count or something, but he got taken out. And they were winning 4-0. Well, the Demopolis came in, hit a solo home run in the 6th, hit a solo home run in the 7th, but Mason still walked away with 5 hitless innings and 7 strikeouts.
Oh, my goodness.
And then Christian Rice threw a shutout for Saraland. So, and over in Baldwin County, you had T.J. Bailey at Bayside Academy. He's having a good year. Look for good things. Declan Reddy at St. Michael. Jacob O'Brien and John Luke Stevens at Gulf Shores, Braden Brown from Spanish Fort, and Noah Kane at Bayside Academy.
Yeah, these
All-
guys play football too,
yeah,
so we know
they're
their
all
names.
good athletes.
Yep.
It's
Yeah.
so cool to. Hey, I'm 63 years old, but I turn 17 every time I get around these guys.
Yeah, it's awesome.
But if y'all, I know this is. Nobody's going to see this right now. I have not announced this on my Facebook page. I'm going to do it right here if y'all don't mind.
Go ahead.
All right. Hello, sports fans for Facebook page, Mobile Baseball Connection. First week, I'm going to give you the player and pitcher of the week for Baldwin County and the player and pitcher of the week for Mobile County. We'll start with the pitcher of the week from Baldwin County. From St. Michael, Coach Peter Bezzaretti. You'll love to hear this. Cam Kerbel. Cam Kerbel went 4 innings, gave up 2 hits, 2 earned runs, struck out 9, and not just on the mound. He was 5 for 12 at 417 with a double, 3 RBIs, 3 runs, 2 walks, got hit by a pitch, reached on an air, stole a base, and 9 for 15.
My
hitting on base.
goodness, what a
Coach
day.
Bezzaretti told me, he says, we're hoping to get somebody out to your
Right.
luncheon this year. So come on, Coach.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's the pitcher of the week. Player of the week for Baldwin County. From Orange Beach,
Okay.
Coach Josh Hull is happy about this. Ward Hickman. Ward Hickman was 5 for 8 with a double, 5 RBIs, and got hit by a pitch twice. And that is a good thing for Orange Beach and St. Michael's. We're going to be expecting y'all at the awards luncheons, coaches and players.
I love that.
And we'll go over to, I mentioned these guys earlier, the Mobile County Players of the Week. First from St. Paul's, it's obvious, John Stowers with the 4 home runs. He was 4 for 7 with 9 RBIs. His first 3 games, scored 8 runs. He walked 5 times. was hit by a pitch and stole a base. He was on base 10 of 13 times.
Oh, my God.
Believe it or not, he walked over like 52 or 53 times last year.
Oh, wow.
Oh, my goodness.
He's looking for that one pitch.
Yeah.
And that's cool. Hey, he's a great guy too.
Yeah.
His father's cool. The thing about these kids is their parents are good people.
Good people, and they're good kids.
That's right. And the pitcher of the week, Matt Seymour, you'll be happy about this, and the rest of the Rams will too. Brody Wilson, I mentioned, with Faith Academy, threw a no-hitter with 10 strikeouts and a walk. And that same game, he had a home run, single, walk, stole a base, and scored 3 runs and 3 RBIs. So those are your players and pitchers of the week from Mobile and Baldwin County.
Well, congratulations to our players of the week. I love that. I'm so glad you did that. We did not know that was coming. So surprised.
I didn't either. I had all these notes. Like I said, I don't know what to do.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Joey, you have been an absolute treat.
Absolutely.
We have so enjoyed having you here. Me and Robert have been so looking forward to you coming and doing this with us, so we're so glad you took the time to do it. I know Robert's really enjoyed it, too. I know he said he's a basketball guy, but I'm trying to get him in on the baseball.
Yeah, well, listen, it's less about the sport and more about somebody who has a passion and shares that with the world, and that is exactly what you do with high school baseball. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it and enjoy watching it. So,
well, I thank y'all from the bottom of my heart. Seriously, I'm able to come over here and be myself, and that's who I am. And being able to share the love that I have for baseball, and I love football too, and basketball.
Sure,
I'm a runner from way back.
Right,
but it's sports in general, and I have two precious daughters. And 5 grandchildren, 4 of them are boys. So I hope God will give me an opportunity to stay around to watch them grow on the ball field, and my granddaughter. And that's what it's all about. The parents that support sports, it's about their kids. It's about coaches coaching their kids. And they got to stay on their kids. It's their job to keep them in line, but the players and the students have their responsibility to grow up as well. So thanks again, Emily, and thanks again, Robert, for having me, and helping me.
2 birds, 1 stone.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, Joey. We so appreciate it. It's been a blast. I'm going to go ahead and get us on out of here. Thank y'all so much for tuning in to the Big Friday Kickoff Podcast. I'm Emily Cochran. He's Robert Ristaneo, and he's Joey Warner. We'll see y'all next week.